Hi, Cornerstone. Pastor Nick here again to discuss Sinclair Ferguson's book devoted to God's Church. We're reading chapter 10 this week, which means that we will actually be finishing this book next week. So I hope as we near the end of this book that you found it to be a rich blessing to your soul as you've meditated on these various truths regarding Christ Church. This week, though we are reading chapter 10, I actually want to look at chapter 8 with you, which is a chapter on prayer. And my reason for focusing on this chapter is twofold. One, prayer is absolutely vital to the health of the local church. And two, this coming Lord's Day, we will have our time of corporate prayer together prior to our evening service. And so it just seemed fitting to focus upon this chapter. Ferguson highlights the fact that prayer is not merely intended to be an individualistic activity that is carried out between the Christian and God, but that it has always been intended to likewise be a corporate activity. He shows this from the Lord's Prayer itself. So when Jesus' disciples ask him, Lord, teach us to pray, how are we to pray? Jesus, throughout that prayer, stresses the corporate. It's our Father that we are praying to. It's our daily bread that we are praying for. It's our sins or trespasses that we are seeking forgiveness for. There is this our that is woven throughout the prayer. And we see this corporate dimension to prayer working itself out in the life of the early church. In the book of Acts, over and over and over again, we find the church gathering to pray, to give themselves earnestly and diligently to prayer. And that as they do, we see God responding in mighty ways. We see the gospel going forth in power. We see the church being built up in faith and holiness. And Ferguson makes the convicting comment in this chapter that both with regards to the individual and with regards to the corporates, that if we want to get to the heart of the individual Christian or the corporate church, where we need to look is the prayer closet or the prayer meeting. That there's nothing that more evidences the life of the church than its praying. And so as we think about this chapter, as we prepare ourselves for this coming Lord's Day when we will gather together to pray, let's be asking ourselves, if a visitor was to come into our church this Sunday and they were to examine the heart of Cornerstone by our praying, what would they determine was the state of our heart? What would they determine about the life of this local body of believers as they examined the way that we prayed, the priority or lack of priority that we gave to prayer? What would this tell them about us? You see, prayer is intimately connected to humility. I've been thinking a lot about humility lately. And prayer it's an expression of our weakness. It's an expression of our dependence. It's an expression that we are not sufficient in ourselves, that we need Christ, that apart from Him, we can do nothing. And that recognition is the outworking of humility. It's the outworking of the downward disposition of a Godward self-perception. Are we a humble church? And is that humility manifesting itself in a prayerfulness, both as individuals and corporately? Are we giving ourselves to prayer? Is prayer the lifeblood of our life together?